constricting me, it's suffocating me. But marriage is meant to liberate you, meant to fulfill your human nature, to want a companion. So if reasoning with it doesn't work, if depriving them of your affections doesn't work, then there's allowed to limited corporal redress. Limited corporal redress. And as the scholars have stated many times, it can be no more than essentially a tap with something as big as this, like a miswak or something. It's literally nothing that's going to cause any bruises, scratches, broken limbs and bones and so on when they car crash or something. It's almost symbolic. Because if someone that you respect so much goes to you and actually slaps you on the wrist, you think, oh my God, has it got that far? That they've had to resort to that? But in the West, it's like, oh my God, some woman's being hit, crying, bloody murder, this is horrific, this is oppression of women. It's like, well, do you look at how it works? Trust me, if I would prefer that if I was not fulfilling my duties to my wife, that she just engaged in physical violence to me and not taken to the state, where I'll be humiliated and shamed, and so in a Sharia state and so on, which unfortunately we have yet to realize at this time in Muslim history, unfortunately, although historically it was. So this is the context. Everything has to be understood in its context. Lastly, how much time is that? Oh, sure. It was meant to be a Sharia solution to mankind, not a solution to insomnia. So I'm going to be very brief. I've just got one last thing to say to you. The ruling system of Islam, how everything's organized, it's not a theocracy, it is not a dictatorship or autocracy, and it's not democracy. And someone said to me, they said, how are the rights of minorities guaranteed in a Sharia Islamic state? And I said, how do you know the minorities are not going to be oppressed? How do you prevent this? And I said, don't worry, mate, we're not democratic. The majority rule doesn't apply. You see, go to India, one of the biggest democracies in the world, how much trouble are they having between their different sects? There are massacres, there are killings on the streets. In Kenya, you have in Rwanda, in South America, the list goes in Thailand, the list goes on and on. And these are democratic countries. In this country now, you've got the beginning, the far right has been in this country so long. Germany in World War II was a democratic, liberal country. It became fascist with ultra-nationalism, which is a form of sectarianism, and so on. It came from a liberal democratic country, under democracy. Yeah? And now we're seeing the EDL as well rising up in this country, so much for tolerance. They're saying everyone must, David Cameron said, everyone must now, have one British culture, British values and so on. I was like, what? This is shocking. It's absolutely shocking that you're promoting tolerance, but at the same time saying we don't tolerate different cultures within our society. So who decides what the one culture is? So the ruling system is not democratic and it's not autocratic or theocratic, where a bunch of priests just say, yes, I woke up this morning and I felt like implementing this law and it's the will of God because I'm a priest. Yeah? No. Islam believes in, I suppose if you want to use the Greek terminology, a nomocracy, which is rule of law. The Sharia is the sovereign. The Sharia itself is the sovereign. The people, the Muslims in our society get together to fulfill the collective obligations that they can't fulfill as individuals. So implementing zakat, protecting the economy, having jurisdiction over public properties such as water, gas, oil, all these different things, distribution, all these things, you can't use individuals. So we get together, and the Quran says, discharge your affairs by mutual consultation. So what all Muslims do, Muslims go get together, we elect one from our number who will have the authority to discharge the collective obligations and manage them. And this is called a caliphate. And it's been a historic system, Islamic system. And you see the ambassador of France during the 16th or 17th century, and he went to the Ottoman Turkey where there was the sultans and so on. And he wanted to get some legislation, or he wanted to get make a deal. And the sultan said, okay, wait there. And many months went by as the sultan had to consult with different institutions within the Ottoman state, the merchants' guilds, the people of various areas will be affected by the economic changes and so on and so forth. So much consultation, and the ambassador sent a letter back to France saying it is frustrating to deal with the Turks because they have to consult everyone on everything they do. And this was at a time when France was an autocratic dictatorship under a king and so on. So this is what Islam mandates: consultation. You discharge the affairs by consulting the people. And we call it the contract of ruling, whereby we put someone in power as long as they implement the Sharia. And the great thing about this is that if I, let's say as a Muslim, become militant and say, I think Christians must be forced to convert to Islam, which has never happened in the history of this historical Islamic caliphate, that if I do that, someone will say, you can't do this because the Sharia says you can't. And the Sharia is more important than you, and you can be yourself subject to judgment if you disobey it. And if I say, and I can't say, well, the Sharia was made by people, the Sharia comes from human beings, you can change it and twist it and say, no, Sharia comes from God. You can't change it, you can't use it, make an excuse to oppress people. That's the benefit of Sharia. And in some ways, America has done a similar system, where they made their constitution, whoever you vote for, the constitution is the one that's in power. And they made their constitution almost divine-like, so that it can't be changed. It's like an immutable document. It's sacred. It's very interesting that kind of method, they use the same kind of methodology, because they realize that if you have a system of ideals which are viewed as sacred and as ideals, they can't be changed for some capricious politician to twist to get his own agenda. And this is why the ruling system of Islam is incorruptible in terms of at its top head, Sharia. As for foreign policy, I'm going to be very quick with this. The foreign policy, again, is a controversial topic, and please ask loads of questions on it. But essentially, many of the verses of the Quran talk about fighting those who oppress, fighting those who fight you, fighting those who oppress their own people. And I'll just quote one verse of the Quran that says, "What is wrong with you that you fight not in the cause of God for the weak and the oppressed amongst the men and women and children who say, Our Lord, rescue us from this town, who are oppressors, and give us someone from you who will protect us." This is Islam's, I guess, controversial element, because Islam believes in fighting against oppression, wherever it is. Which means that, and this is what's happened, when a colonial power comes in and oppresses and exploits resources, you get a backlash. Islam does mandate you fight against an occupier, an oppressor, and so on. And it has been used to be spun as, oh, look at these Muslims, they're all violent, look how violent they are. Look at these pictures of a militant with a gun and so on. Okay, it's fine. Look in the background, that militant. The background, the militant with a gun. Look in the background. Is he in Britain? Is he in France or USA? Where is he? He's in Somalia, Afghanistan, Iraq, Palestine, Kashmir. It's Muslim land he's in. He's not militant because Islam is a bloodthirsty barbaric religion that just wants to conquer the world. He's defending his own land. And they say the problem in the Middle East, in Afghanistan, all these foreign fighters. That yes, you're the foreign fighters. So of course Islam is going to now believes in fighting against oppression, but it also believes in fighting for non-Muslims who are oppressed as well. So if non-Muslims are oppressed, we must answer the call and respond. We don't care if they've got oil or gas, whatever in their country, whatever. If the Rwanda massacre happened, if Muslims were able to, they should have intervened immediately. But that's a different discussion, and please ask those questions. And finally, the multicultural system. Islam is based on the verse of the Quran which says, "Let there be no compulsion in deen." Deen means either religion, culture, way of life, and belief. Because the truth is clear from falsehood. So as Muslims, there is no compulsion. You can't compel people to believe in your way of life, to believe in your religion. So what do? When Muslims have a state, under Sharia, what do you do with non-Muslims? Do you say, multiculturalism has failed. We need to implement a monoculture which non-Muslims must follow our culture, our values, otherwise there's going to be trouble. We need a muscular Sharia, muscular Islam. To paraphrase David Cameron's muscular liberalism. Yeah? We don't believe this. We believe that every non-Muslim, if they don't believe in Sharia, then you can't apply on them. They shouldn't be subject to Sharia if they don't believe in it. So something else was developed by the Prophet Muhammad, obviously which was revealed to him, which was the contract that Muslims form with non-Muslims called dhimma, which is it's like Rousseau's, the philosopher Rousseau's contract citizen. That essentially, you don't believe in the basis of the Sharia, you don't believe it comes from God. Okay, right, fine. But can we have a contract where you pay money so that we can protect you with our armies, provide you services and so on and so forth, for your upkeep or whatever. And you don't have to join the armies, you don't have to fight in our wars, you don't have to go to our courts. You can have your areas, worship as you want, wear what you want and so on. That's fine, we have no problem with this. You can follow your culture, even if it's distinctly different from ours, that's no problem, we have no problem with this. Islamic multiculturalism. And there are many evidences I can quote for this, but I'm only going to quote one, and it's about a non-Muslim. Richard W. Bulliet said, very interesting on this, minutely studying case after case, they have shown that justice was generally meted out impartially, irrespective of religion, official status, gender, or, not being subject to the Sharia, Jews and Christians were free to go to their own religious authorities for adjudication of disputes, but in many cases they went and said to the Islamic judge. Jews and Christians had their own law courts they could go to. A lot of cases they went to the Islamic law courts instead for a dispute, and that was their choice. But we don't believe that non-Muslims must be subject to Sharia, even in Islamic countries. Forget when the newspapers say Muslims want to set Sharia imposed on non-Muslims in the UK. It's like, that's rubbish. You don't want to impose it on non-Muslims in the Muslim world. Because non-Muslims don't believe in it, so it's unfair. It's unfair to follow something they don't believe in. That's not fair. And again, ask me in the question and answer session, I will give you all the evidence from the Islamic texts proving that, and what the Prophet Muhammad said. Lastly, the Prophet Muhammad said, whoever has harmed a dhimmi has harmed me. The Prophet said, whoever has harmed a non-Muslim who lives in an Islamic state under Sharia, whoever has harmed him has harmed me. He's told the Muslims this. Muslims love the Prophet Muhammad. We will do anything for Prophet Muhammad. He is our exemplar. We hate him being insulted and abused. And he said that whoever harms a non-Muslim in Islamic lands has harmed himself. Unfortunately, there are many non-Muslims who are being hurt and oppressed in Muslim countries because Muslims who don't follow the Sharia are doing it. And they should be condemned outright, and they should be urged to follow Islam and punished. Maybe not in that order. And of course, lastly, I'll end with the metaphysical system of Islam, which is the collective prayer and the Hajj, which Sharia enjoins. The collective prayer every Friday, where Muslims pray together, it inspires a sense of unity of the community. And Hajj, where we go and we see different races around the world, this gives us a sense of unity of humanity, seeing different races. The purposes of why these institutions were given were for the worship of God. But the positive effects that Sharia does is to help unify and remind people to pray together and realize that we're all human beings, that we all have human nature, that we're all weak. And the Quran says Allah would make the burden light for you, for man was created weak. Lastly, the Prophet says also, I have been sent with an easy and practicable Sharia. So in conclusion, Islam doesn't expect human beings to be perfect. And if they drop a crumb, they must be beheaded instantly. No. It is because of the mercy and compassion that's within Islam. It understands that humans are weak. It doesn't expect people to exercise what they call moral heroism in the face of overwhelming temptation when surrounded by them. It doesn't put human beings into overwhelming temptation, for them to steal or to drink alcohol, to gamble, or to or rape, or what have you. It knows that human beings make mistakes. And even in the judicial system, if someone commits murder against someone else, the family has the option to forgive the murderer and just ask for financial recompense. You can have forgiveness in the Islamic legal system. No one knows that. This is not put on the news, unfortunately. So the Islamic system is integrated and holistic. It answers all these situations according to human nature. And in the question and answer session, I want you to challenge me on this. What is human nature, and how do I know this, as I said? Because Islam is integrated holistic, every aspect supports every other aspect. And I hope you'll realize and see for yourselves that the Sharia can provide a potent and true and natural solution for the problems of mankind. Thank you.
We're now going to open the question and answer session. To allow for as many questions as possible, I ask that you keep your questions concise, short, and other narratives to a minimum.